You see how calm it is now? Clear skies, quiet waters. Everything feels normal. But in the Bahamas, we know this is the time to prepare before the storms form. Hurricanes do not wait for you to get ready, and they do not arrive with mercy. Start preparing now. Store water and non-perishable food. Check your batteries, flashlights, and emergency supplies. Secure your roof, windows, and shutters. Review your insurance coverage to ensure your protection is up to date. Make a plan. Know where you will go if you need to relocate. And check on your family, friends, and neighbors. We are stronger when we look out for each other. Preparation is not fear. It is protection. It's peace of mind. Ready today, strong tomorrow. The Insurance Commission of the Bahamas. Protecting policyholders and strengthening our insurance industry.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Dana Munnings-Gray, Superintendent of Insurance, and the management and staff of the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, we welcome you to this Hurricane Preparedness webinar hosted by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas in collaboration with our valued industry partners, the Bahamas Insurance Association. My name is Daneisha Clarke, and I am a Senior Communications Analyst here at the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. For those who may be less familiar with us, the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas is the regulatory authority responsible for supervising and overseeing insurance activity in and through the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Our role includes helping to ensure that the insurance industry operates in a sound, fair, and responsible manner, while also protecting the interests of policyholders and the insuring public. That is why this conversation like today is so important. Insurance can sometimes feel technical or overwhelming, but when people understand their coverage, their risk, and the steps they should take, they are better positioned to protect their homes, families, and financial responsibilities. The webinar is about making that information clear, practical, and accessible so that the preparedness becomes part of your everyday mindset, not something we only think about when a storm is approaching. And as we enter another hurricane season, this conversation is not just timely, it is absolutely essential. In the Bahamas, hurricanes are not a distant possibility. They are a very real and reoccurring threat that can impact our homes, finances, and livelihoods with little notice. Preparation is one of the most powerful tools we can have. But preparation isn't just about stocking supplies or boarding windows. It's about understanding your risk, knowing your insurance coverage, and being ready to act before and after a storm. Too often, people begin asking questions after a storm has passed, when it may already be too late. Today is about changing that. So we're going to drop a poll in the group right now just to get a pulse check. How prepared do you feel for this hurricane season? Are you very prepared, somewhat prepared, not prepared, or not sure? To guide us through this discussion, we are joined by distinguished industry experts. Today, we have Ms. Ruth Bethell. She is an accomplished insurance professional with more than 25 years of experience in the Bahamian insurance industry, with expertise in claims management, insurance operations, and industry leadership. She currently serves as claims manager at CG Atlantic General Insurance and is actively involved in industry development through her work with the Bahamas Insurance Association, including the Claims Committee and Education Committee. We also have with us today Mr. Christopher Day. He is a chartered civil engineer and fellow of the Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters, with extensive experience in insurance, claims management, loss adjusting, and catastrophe response. He currently serves as Managing Director and Co-owner of Technical Adjusters Bahamas Limited, where he leads the firm and continues to handle a wide range of property, engineering, and weather-related insurance claims. Thank you both for being here and sharing your expertise.
Thank you for having us, Daneisha. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we saw from the poll that we took earlier that people feel somewhat prepared, so we have some work to do. So as we go, we're going to cover a few things: preparedness levels within the Bahamas, insurance coverage and common gaps, claims processes, cost and accessibility, and practical steps you can take right now. We often hear people say, I think I'm prepared, or I have insurance, so I'm covered. But what does being truly prepared actually look like? So let's get into the conversation, guys. From your perspective, Ruth, how prepared are Bahamian households for the 2026 hurricane season?
Bahamian households are typically becoming more aware of hurricane risks, particularly after experiencing major storms like Hurricane Matthew in 2016 and Hurricane Dorian in 2019. However, many families are still underprepared from an insurance standpoint. So persons may not have reviewed their policies in years. Others may not have updated their sums insured. Others may not have updated for renovations. And so from an insurance standpoint, there are gaps as it relates to persons not being properly repaired or properly insured or underinsured.
Okay, so I would say that we probably need to improve in certain areas, key areas, you believe.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's look at it now about coverage clarity. We want to ask Mr. Day, what are the most common gaps you see in insurance coverage?
Yes, I think I'd like to highlight two particular gaps that we see on a daily basis. One is the dreaded word underinsurance, and the second is the difference between what people believe they've insured for and what they have actually insured for. And when I raise that, I mean specifically, what does the policy cover? I know we'll talk more about that shortly, but that's a real important subject for today.
Okay, so for our audience, can you explain what is underinsured?
Yes, certainly. I'll start, Ruth, if I can. It's very important to make sure that your home, and we're typically talking about home insurance here, is properly insured for its full rebuilding cost, and that the contents are properly insured for their full replacement cost. Now, when we talk about rebuilding cost, we're not just talking about the cost of building the house. We're talking about removing all the debris. And I raise that subject because when a property is badly damaged, one of the large costs people can face is demolishing the house and taking away the debris. So the cost of rebuilding has to include demolition, professional fees for designing the property, and the full rebuilding cost. And don't forget, please, also insure VAT, because if you rebuild a house, you will have to pay VAT on the cost of rebuilding.
Wow, that's some information we definitely needed to know.
Absolutely.
Yes, so, okay, Ruth, can you walk us through what a typical homeowner's policy covers for hurricanes?
So policies will differ from insurer, but a standard homeowner's policy would generally cover physical damage caused by a hurricane from winds, for example. And the cover could include structural damage, roof damage, personal belongings as well, if that cover was taken out. So cover is always subject to the policy terms and condition of the policy. So the consumer, the client, should always ensure that they review their policies annually and have a conversation with their broker to ensure that there are no gaps in cover. Think about it from a financial standpoint. If I lose this, do I have an insurance policy in place to replace it?
Okay, so let's break this down in simple terms. What are some common misconceptions people have when it comes to home insurance?
One chief misconception is that every single thing is covered.
Yeah.
Everything is included. There are certain policy terms and conditions that may limit the amount that you may get paid. For example, persons need to be aware of a policy deductible. They also need to be aware of reporting criteria. There are certain strict timelines with regards to reporting claims.
Yeah, so definitely we need to go back to the basics and speak to our salespersons and make sure we have the things that we need to have and understand it as well. I think one of the things Bahamians really don't do is ask questions or go in depth.
Or read their policy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
believe sometimes we just say we did it and we're secured, and they don't ask the proper questions to make sure they actually know what they got themselves into.
Yeah, if I could raise one point that's really important for people. Many people have a mortgage on their property from a bank or other lending institution. A requirement of that mortgage will usually be to have insurance on the property. It is important that people realise that that loan and that insurance will only relate to the house itself. It won't relate to the contents. So many people think they're fully insured, but in reality the policy they have may only cover the contents of the building structure, not the contents. And so typically people should have a separate policy for the contents of the house.
Definitely. So we want to get into the next topic, trying to clear up some confusion here. Can you explain the difference between windstorm coverage and flood coverage? I know sometimes people say, okay, I believe my house is protected from this. What is windstorm and what is flood coverage? Because sometimes floods can come from the ocean. Sometimes floods can come from just a downpour of rain. So can you guys explain the difference for us so we can get some?
So I'll start and I'll let Chris chime in, because Chris, as the adjuster, they will always come in and tell insurers what they should or shouldn't pay you, the consumer. But generally speaking, windstorm coverage protects against damage caused directly by wind, such as roofs being blown off during a hurricane. And conversely, flood coverage protects against rising waters entering the property from external sources, such as storm surge or heavy rain or overflowing water paths. So there are two separate perils under policy. And flood damage is typically not automatically included in some policies, and that's why it's important to be able to read through the policy with your broker. If there are any questions or concerns that you have, raise those questions, and raise those questions early rather than later.
So Chris, you have some?
Yes, there's a very important distinction here between windstorm and flood. Windstorm, typically in Bahamian policies, comes under what is known as the catastrophe perils, and that's what people think of as a hurricane, if you like, or a tropical storm, where the winds are above, typically around about 40 to 45 miles an hour. Some policies will define a windstorm as being a particular wind speed. In other words, windstorm peril will only act if the wind is above a particular speed, and that's why it's important, as Ruth has said, to make sure you're familiar with what's in the policy. Conversely, a flood peril is usually offered as a traditional peril, not associated with hurricanes, and so the flood peril is what we would call a normal peril. And don't forget, in some policies you have the option to take catastrophe cover or not to take catastrophe cover. And there's a big difference in the price of a policy as to whether catastrophe cover is taken or not taken. Now, flood cover is part of what I would call a normal, typical perils policy. That will attract typically a normal deductible. Deductible might be $250, $500. But a windstorm peril, a hurricane catastrophe type peril, will attract the higher catastrophe deductible, which is usually defined in the policy as a percentage of the sum insured, not a percentage of the claim. And I'm sorry if this sounds very detailed, but it's important people understand the difference. As an example, if you have a house that's damaged by a hurricane incident, and you have to pay a hurricane deductible, it could be 2% of the sum insured. As an example, if your house is insured for $100,000, the deductible will be $2,000. Conversely, if it's just a regular flood incident, the deductible might be $250 or $500.
Okay, so we got some information. I like how we got into the cost, because that was one of my questions coming up next. But since you got that information, audience, we want to drop a poll in the group. Do you fully understand what your insurance policy covers after hearing them explain this right now? Yes, no, somewhat? Do you feel like you need to dig a little deeper, have more conversations? Let us know in the chat. So you guys started to bring up cost. And, you know, that's the big elephant in the room. People feel that, you know, insurance is expensive. And we understand it's necessary. But we want to ask, many people say insurance is too expensive. What factors drive these costs?
So I remind clients every day that insurers have insurance as well. And so one of the driving factors for your premium cost is the cost of reinsurance. Also, your location of your home, the construction of your home, the proximity to water, for example. So all of those are factors that would influence the affixing of the premium that the underwriters would charge you. One of the other things that persons, when they think about costs, that they can be mindful of, when negotiating your premium with your insurance broker, you can discuss a deductible, for example, either having that increase. Standard deductibles on policies with regards to cat or hurricane cover is usually about 2%. If you decide to increase that to about 5 or 10%, that can result in a cheaper premium in terms of savings. Additionally, in terms of costs, some brokers, insurers allow for there to be financing of the premium. So I always encourage persons, speak with your broker, find out what the options are, and you can go from there.
So back to the poll, we had some persons answer. 40% said they somewhat understand their insurance. Now, as persons in the industry, how y'all feel about that? Is that given accurate?
Well, I'm very impressed that it's as high as 40%. So
Okay.
I do believe it's key, though, to understand. You have to be able to ask the questions and read the policy. Your broker, when you take out an insurance policy, is your friend. Speak with your insurance broker. Let them know exactly what your exposures are. Talk about your home. I tell people, look at your home. For most of us, our home is going to be our largest single investment. And so we want to make sure that we are adequately insured and we protect that investment. Look at your home, look at what is in it, look at what is outside of it, and say, if I was to lose this, how much money would I need to replace this? And then you want to make sure that your insurance policy speaks to that reality.
Yeah. So definitely we have to do our part as policyholders.
Exactly.
So, Chris, I want to ask, what practical ways can consumers lower their premiums if they can?
Well, yes, it's important to emphasize that I'm not an insurer, so I don't sell insurance. But I am a consumer of insurance. I have to insure my own home. And so, as Ruth's mentioned, there are some things that people can do. And it does relate to protecting the house and explaining to the insurer what measures that you've taken. So, for example, if you have a house which has hurricane shutters, and you make sure that they're used during a hurricane, that can help to protect the house. If you have a house which has hurricane impact resistant windows and doors installed, that again can help to protect the house. And it's important, if you've invested in those things, to explain that to your insurer and your broker so that they can consider that when calculating the premium. It sounds like a big investment, but I think everyone at heart wants to protect the house and not have the damage. So if you're able to protect your house using those things, it will assist in reducing the premium.
So definitely, we just heard some tips that we can now use. Like he said, it may be expense now, but down the line, it will be worth it. So understanding, if you start doing a little things around your house, making sure you have hurricane impact windows, hurricane shutters, or moving the debris from around your homes, things like that can help with lowering the premium. So I want to ask one more question in the cost and accessibility part. What options exist for persons who currently don't have insurance? Is there an option?
So there are always options. And again, I have to stress, speak with your broker. As you all know, or as you know, in the Bahamas, all insurance has to be booked via an intermediary.
Yes.
So it's important to have those conversations with the broker. Discuss the options. You may not want to have full hurricane cover. You may want to have XCAT. To ensure that in the event of a fire, for example, you have insurance. Some insurers also, or some brokers also allow the opportunity to finance your premium over installments. Some insurers also allow discounts by way of bundling. So if you have your home, your motor, your marine, your business, you may get a more attractive policy. Have the conversation, because you may be surprised that there are several options that you can avail yourself of.
There are some interesting products coming onto the market, both in the Bahamas and internationally, particularly through the Caribbean, actually. There are newer products which come under the umbrella of what's called parametric insurance, which may be able to assist with certain levels of payments in certain situations. They're quite exciting products, and whilst this session isn't designed to cover parametric insurance, I'd like to seed that in people's minds, because there may be routes into buying smaller levels of insurance to cover small elements of a risk rather than taking a full insurance policy.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. I just wanted to do a little plug for the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas. We have our Innovation Hub where we're actually having these conversations with people who want to bring that into the Bahamas. So definitely something that we're looking at and we're working on. So walk us through step by step the claims, concerns process. I know, Ruth, you are a claims manager, so this definitely is your category to shine. Why is my claims check issued jointly to me and my bank?
Some policies have a condition that requires any payment to protect the interests of the lost payee.
Okay.
Until that mortgage is paid off, that house is, the bank has an interest in that home.
Yeah.
And so banks also want to be involved in the overseeing of certain repairs, particularly following a hurricane and there's a large payment. The banks may have a list of certain certified contractors that they may want their asset to be in the carriage of. And so as insurers, when we issue claim payments, we have to therefore protect the interests of the bank, because there's still a lien on that property.
Yeah, so definitely if you went in with the bank, guys, the bank is going to be a part of the conversation.
Yes, typically in a policy, if you want to see how that's dealt with in a policy, look for what's called a loss payee clause or a mortgage clause.
Yeah, so one more question concerning the bank. You can answer it if you feel comfortable. Does the bank have a role in determining repairs? Like what you do with your house after you get your money, or?
It may vary from bank to bank, and it also may vary depending on the cost of your payment. Certain banks may require, as I mentioned earlier, for the repairs to be overseen by one of their preferred or authorized list of contractors. Again, it's important to have that conversation beforehand. So when you decide to approach a lending institution to take out a mortgage, speak with them about what their policies and procedures are with regards to, in the event of a claim, what is the expectation that you require of me and that I should require of you as my lending institution.
Okay. So you want to say
Certainly we've seen instances where banks definitely do want to take an interest in the rebuilding of a property, because as Ruth's pointed out, the asset, the house, belongs to the bank. You're borrowing the money to buy it over a period of time, and it could be 25, 35 years, but essentially that asset belongs to the bank, and they do have to protect that asset. So I think it is reasonable for them to want to make sure that rebuilding of the property is done correctly and that the asset is continually protected.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get into the claims process. After a hurricane, what should policyholders do first?
After a storm, the first thing is your personal safety. You, your household, your family. So you want to ascertain that everybody is safe. After you've done that, then you want to be able to prevent any further loss or damage to your property. And then you should call your insurers. Oftentimes, there could be delays in claim because there's a delay in notification. So once you've notified your insurer, you want to also take photographs of the damage so that you can properly document and catalog what has happened. It's also important for persons to remember, particularly with regards to contents, do not throw away anything until you have documented the damage and your insurers, for example, have commented on whether or not that can be discarded. Then you would want to go about getting estimates, for example. After a storm, because of the high volume of loss, the contractors will be inundated with requests, and so the estimates may take a long time to come. Certain people believe, clients may be of the view that they would need to wait on an estimate to come in to file a claim. You do not need to do that. Protect yourself, prevent further loss or damage, notify your insurers, take photos of the damage, and then provide the supporting documents.
Yeah, I think it's critical to follow the steps Ruth mentioned. It is important to notify the insurer, though. On the claims side, when we're dealing with claims for insurers, unfortunately, all too often when we've seen delay, it's because people believe that the insurer will come to them somehow, which realistically is not going to happen. It's simply not practical for an insurer to contact all of their clients. But it is important that people notify their insurer and make sure that they complete any relevant forms that the insurer might require.
Yeah. So I think one of the questions the audience probably want me to ask, definitely, why are sometimes claims delayed or denied?
Again, it goes to proper documentation. So claims, particularly with regards to cat cover, as you can expect, there is a huge swell in the volume of losses being experienced by an insurer. So that sheer volume that can create inherent delays. But delays or denial or declinature of a claim can happen because documentation could be incomplete. The damage may not be specifically insured, believe it or not. And the clients have not provided everything that is required from the insurer's standpoint. There may also be some gaps in the cover. Some persons, I think Chris mentioned earlier, they would take out their home insurance because the bank requires it, and they negate to insure their contents. And so when they go in to file a claim, I have my insurance policy, my building was damaged, and I've lost my full suite of furniture. I want to file a claim, and then you realize you do not have contents insurance.
Yes. It is important to remember that ultimately insurance is a contract, and the contract has certain conditions attached to it. Mm-hmm. Often claims are denied, and believe me, as a claims professional, I absolutely hate having to deny a claim. It's much better to have to deal with somebody and see a claim paid in full, but ultimately the decision on a claim is governed by the wording in an insurance policy. And that's why we come back to, very importantly, reading the insurance policy and understanding it. It is true that many insurance policies are difficult to understand. And as Ruth's mentioned, in the Bahamas, we have some excellent insurance brokers who are there to help and advise. The insurer and the broker together will be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And it's important, as Ruth said, to do that in advance of a claim, in advance of an incident. Understand where you are, understand the product that you've bought. We all know that insurance is expensive, and in reality, what you receive is a booklet and an insurance schedule. You don't seem to have a lot for that money, but that contract is the binding agreement which will govern the way in which a claim is progressed.
And I should also add, all insurers in this market, we have excellent insurers in this market in my view, and definitely at CG Atlantic, one of the things we pride ourselves on is providing quality customer service. And believe it or not, when we are processing a claim, we look to see how we can pay this claim, and if there are any challenges in the policy flowing from that claim that may disadvantage a client, the benefit of having that experience is that we're able to speak with our colleagues across the underwriting aisle, and we say to them, the policy had this gap, or the policy needs to be amended to provide this additional cover. So the claims experience, even the declinature of a claim, allows us as insurers to be able to enhance and improve the policy so that the client experience can be better for the next time.
And that's so good to hear that the persons that we are regulating as the Insurance Commission are looking out for our policyholders. Because definitely that is our main reason why the Insurance Commission is here, why you guys are here. And we are proud to be a part, with you guys, making sure that this industry stays thriving and make sure that our policyholders are safe.
We've heard it said often that claims is the shop window of an insurance company. When you have a claim, that's the proof of the benefit of this policy. And so if you are not able to get satisfied, you may not want to renew that policy. I'm working because I need you to continue to pay that premium.
Right.
And so it stands to reason that we have to ensure that clients are satisfied not only with the service that they get, but they're satisfied with the policy that we have.
Right.
And policies over the years have evolved, and they have evolved because of claims and exposures, and clients saying, I have this exposure, I need my policy to be able to meet this demand.
Yeah.
I think one statistic I'd like to throw in there that people may be surprised by. Technical adjusters deal with thousands of insurance claims. I think I'm correct in saying that less than 2% of those claims are declined. So turn that round, over 98% of claims are paid by insurers.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful to hear. So I feel secured in that. Definitely as a hurricane survivor, I have been through a few storms, and definitely knowing that we have an industry that is protecting people and that people will be also paid out probably.
And the great ICB makes sure that we keep our hands to the wheel and our feet to the fire.
We do. Yes, we do. So we want to get into some more questions. We're going to talk about risk reduction. But before we do that, we want to engage our audience. We want to drop a poll in the chat. Which of these have you done in the last year? A, reviewed your insurance policy. B, created a home inventory. C, strengthened your home. Or D, none of the above. Because they just gave you guys some great tips, and all of these are what you guys are supposed to be doing, but we want to see where you are at. So let's talk about risk reduction. What steps can homeowners take now to reduce risk? I know we kind of answered it earlier, but let's reiterate for our audience to make sure we drive the message home.
Things such as even installation of shutters, trimming your trees, reviewing your policy, those type of things that we may take for granted, those can assist in reducing our risk. And they will also, in terms of hurricane window installation, they can also lead to perhaps improvement of the risk, which can lend to a more attractive premium as well. Chris, you adding something?
Yeah, I think simple things that people can do, and I'm talking here about relatively low-cost options as well. Ruth touched on the trimming of trees. We live in an environment where there are many trees surrounding our houses. A lot of those trees, though, are very flexible. You only have to look out of your window during a windy day and you'll see your coconut trees blowing and waving around in the wind. Yeah. It's important to make sure that, prior to the hurricane season, trees are trimmed, and if you have a tree which is near a power line, please make sure it's safely cut down to below the level of that power line. Again, these are easy steps. But when it comes to hurricane, a build-up to a hurricane, please, please, please move things like patio furniture. Right. Just lock it away. Things that could blow away and cause damage to your house can easily be moved. It's a very low cost step, but please do it. It will save time and it will prevent damage.
Yeah. And definitely, like they said, make sure to take photos of inventory and belongings, because preparation is also documentation.
Absolutely.
Like, make sure you are doing these things. So we got the answer back from the poll, 35% reviewed.
Excellent.
That's great.
Excellent.
So we need to get that up to about 100%. I'm not settling for 95. But I want to also ask about some questions where we address our mindset as Bahamians. So people said, okay, I've never experienced a hurricane. That's an expense that I don't need because hurricanes don't come to this island. They only hit Grand Bahama. No shade to my people. I'm a Grand Bahamian through and through. But some people have in their mind that, well, yes, the Bahamas is hurricane prone, but it does not usually affect me. So why do I really need insurance if I've never been hit before?
And I would answer that quite simply, right? Insurance is not based on what happened yesterday, but it's based on the possibility of what could happen tomorrow.
Right.
And as you rightly said, Daneisha, we live in a hurricane belt. And so it's not a matter of if, it's just when.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be caught slipping.
No.
You need that coverage.
I think also when we talk about awareness, awareness seems to vary depending on the island on which you live. And we talked about Grand Bahama and Abaco being hit in Dorian, but we have to look at the whole island chain. If you've experienced a hurricane where you live, it's my belief, and speaking to people after a claim, that you are more aware and you're more concerned about claims. We're talking here, living in New Providence, and we're sitting here today from New Providence. I think there's a lot of people in New Providence believe that they are protected from hurricanes because of the track of hurricanes in the past.
Right.
The simple answer to that is we are not. Yes, it's a small island, I should say, but there's a lot of people live here, and the island is prone to flooding, particularly from the south, and can be prone to flooding from the north in certain wind conditions. And a significant event here could be a Category 1 hurricane. It could result in thousands of claims if the wind is in the right direction and if the sea swell is from the south. So we're not protected here in New Providence. The other thing I think is quite common is that age is relevant. Younger people, unfortunately, who've not experienced a hurricane don't know what it's like. Older people who have experienced a hurricane are more wary. And so everything that can be done about awareness and hurricane preparedness is, in my opinion, a very important step.
Agreed.
So we want to go to our chat and see if we have any questions before we decide to wrap up. I mean, you guys definitely answered my questions, but we want to see if there are any other questions out there. So we might be doing it off the cuff, but definitely we'll be asking our audience. We have a Q&A section. If you want to drop a question, you can drop a question. We have about 5 minutes where we could answer some questions. So definitely let us know. We have no questions? Okay, so if we have no questions, I do have a wrap-up question for our team. If there's one thing every Bahamian should do today to prepare, what would it be?
Oh, I think I'd like to jump in straight away with that one and say two things, one of which we've already covered, and that is read your policy and review your coverage. Right. But the second one is a practical tip, and that is, we all carry today mobile phones. It doesn't take very long to photograph your house, photograph your belongings, do little videos, walk around your house, photograph what's in each room, walk around your house, photograph, video the house. There's a record for you so that if there is damage, you can establish what your house was like before and what possessions you had before the incident.
And to add to that, obviously we want to review our insurance policies, but we've established that the insurance policies can be a little bit intimidating. We all have brokers who we would place these business with, and those brokers are ready, they're willing, and they're very capable of explaining to you. So have a conversation with your insurance broker. You say to them, this is what I have. Do I have cover for anything and everything that I could possibly lose? You want to ensure that you understand key things like deductibles. Right. What can happen if I am not adequately insured? And so have that conversation with your insurance broker to explain, for them to help you understand exactly what it is that you need. And if there are any challenges with regards to premium, also have that conversations with them, because there may be options out there in terms of premium financing, in terms of even reduced cover by way of ex-cat versus full cat. So have the conversation with the broker.
Okay, so thank you so much. But we did have some questions that dropped in the chat. And one was actually from our Superintendent of Insurance, Ms. Dana Buddings-Gray. What should people do if after reviewing their policy, they realize they are inadequately covered?
So the first thing to do is to ensure that you connect with your broker. If you haven't already, I would always suggest to persons to speak with an authorized licensed appraiser. Have your home properly appraised to ensure that your sum insured amount reflects the rebuild cost, not the market value. And so if you find that you're out of step with your replacement costs, you want to have that done right away to avoid any challenges when it's time for that claim payment.
I think I would add to that, Ruth, that if you are using a licensed valuer, please make sure that they include everything that is defined within the definition of buildings in the policy. So include
Swimming
not
pools.
only the house, the swimming pools, the walls, the driveways, the outbuildings, include all of those things, even down to things like the gas tank, the generator. Make sure that all of those things are included on your sum insured. But also, if you're using a licensed valuer, please make sure that they include demolition and professional fees and VAT in the valuation.
Okay. So we also have a next question. Do they require new policies, or can the existing one be modified, upgraded, or amended? I think that's a part of the first question.
So it may vary from insurer to insurer, but most policies would allow you to amend your sums insured, particularly if there's not been a hurricane watch or warning issued, for example. So most policies will allow you to amend and increase your sums insured sums amount.
Okay. So we have a next question. What are the most common insurance coverage gaps discovered after a hurricane?
I would say one of the most common gap would be persons realize they have no cover for things such as contents, for example. Persons
Okay,
may
so let's explain what contents is to people so people know like exactly what we're referring to.
So plainly speaking, contents is anything that's loose in the house, anything you can pick up and take away if you decide to relocate.
Okay.
So you're talking about your furniture, your bed, your fridge, your stove, even your clothing.
Yeah.
Those are contents.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one more. We have 3 more questions and then we'll stop there because we want to stay within our time range. How often should homeowners review their insurance policy before hurricane season? I think that's a once a year.
At least annually, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
once a year.
At
And,
least.
and definitely do it before June 1st.
Yeah.
Not June 1st, not June 2nd.
I would also add to that, obviously do it annually, but if you are doing renovations, home improvements, after those types of things, you've installed a pool, you definitely want to renew your sums insured, but annually, but definitely after renovations, for example.
Okay. Okay. We have 2 more questions. Does my coverage amount reflect the current cost to rebuild my home? That's somebody asking a personal question. Does my coverage amount reflect the current cost to rebuild my home?
I think it should.
It should.
It should.
It should. Your sum insured should be the amount to rebuild your home, not the market value of the home.
So what would you advise them to do if they really don't know? Go back to their salespersons or broker to make sure it aligns?
Yes.
The conversation can definitely start there.
Yeah, make sure you seek advice about rebuilding costs because we go through periods of inflation and rebuilding costs are affected by inflation. Take, for example, COVID. Material costs after COVID were significantly higher than they were before. So the cost of construction does vary, and it's important to review that figure on a regular basis.
Okay. Are we heading into hurricane season with a growing number of uninsured or underinsured in the Bahamas?
I think because of our constant exposure to all of these hurricanes, people are more aware of insurance and the need for it. I think the challenge that we face is that persons continue to be underinsured. Oftentimes, when there's a mortgage on a home, persons would have their sums insured in step with the mortgage and not necessarily in step with the rebuild cost of their home. So we have challenges with regards to underinsurance for the building, and with regards to other items like contents, persons negate to insure those at all.
Yeah, I think as well that the question about insurance being linked to a loan is a critical one. I've heard several times people say, "Oh, I no longer need insurance because I've paid off my mortgage." But you're sitting on an asset, as Ruth said, probably your largest asset, and you're no longer insuring it. Insurance is all about risk, and it's always about the amount of risk that you want to take. Well, are you prepared to rebuild your house in full with no insurance? That's a question I'd ask.
Yeah, that's definitely a question people need to consider. And this is the last question we're going to put in. If occupants are forced to cut through the roof to escape rising flood waters during a hurricane, how is the resulting roof damage typically treated under a homeowner's insurance policy? Is the damage covered as a reasonable emergency action to preserve life? And does the answer depend on whether the underlying cause was wind damage, flooding, or both? I think that's...
He's laughing with
Yes.
experience.
Yes, we've seen exactly this point. Well, first of all, if you're in a tragic situation where you've got to cut a hole in the roof to escape, you have my deepest sympathies, because that's a very serious level of flooding. But I think there isn't an insurer in this country that would not accept the cost of repairing the hole in the roof after an incident like that. It may not be directly related damage caused by the hurricane, but it is reasonable to assume that that cost would be covered. I think most insurers would look on that situation very sympathetically.
Absolutely.
However, they will not pay to replace the whole roof just because you excavated a hole in it.
Agreed.
So thank you guys in the chat for engaging us and asking questions. We do appreciate you all. And we want to also thank you, Ms. Bethell and Mr. Dave, for sharing your expertise and for providing us with such insightful and practical guidance today. This discussion has reinforced a critical message for all of us. Preparation is not optional. It is essential.
Absolutely.
So we also would like to extend our sincere thanks to the Bahamas Insurance Association for their collaboration. Both you guys are a part of the BIA, and we are so appreciative of your continued commitment to strengthening public awareness and resilience across our country. And on behalf of the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, I would like to say thank you to our Superintendent of Insurance, Mrs. Dana Munnings-Gray, our Deputy Superintendent of Insurance, Mr. Rodney D. Bain Jr., along with our management and staff here for their ongoing efforts in promoting education, consumer protection, and industry development. And of course, to all of you, our audience, thank you for taking the time to be here and for actively participating in this very important conversation. But before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to complete our post-event survey. Your feedback is extremely valuable and helps us continue to improve and deliver sessions that truly meet your needs. We also want you guys to stay connected with us. Follow us on our LinkedIn, our Facebook, and our Instagram page. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we will have this posted so you guys can rewatch if you need to go back and find some answers. And we also now are having a mailing list. So join our mailing list to stay informed about upcoming events, resources, and initiatives, and even more webinars like this. We have more exciting and informative sessions planned, and we don't want you to miss out. And from the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good day, everyone.